There was no moon in this strange world, and no stars shone overhead, turning it into an unnavigable void at night. Wherever I went during the day, it all looked like familiar places. A forest here, an overgrown wheat field there, and an occasional open road with power lines running over it. Except the forests felt alien, the fields were unkempt, and the roads ultimately led nowhere. A strange haze obscured the horizon on all sides, making it impossible to see more than half a mile away. Sometimes I'd see strange structures around. In the fields, I'd find the occasional barn or farmhouse, but everywhere else it was either a random staircase going nowhere or a 5-meter slice of some house. These structures proved useful. I'd sometimes find a slice that had an intact cabinet or fridge, so I at least had food and clean water. The stairs usually had nothing on top, but sometimes I'd find a half-floor landing staircase that had a box or suitcase halfway up, which would sometimes have something useful in it. One morning, I found one with a pocket knife, a lighter, and a tent bundle. If that case belonged to anyone, they had planned for the wilderness, and I couldn't thank them enough for leaving it there. The lighter worked fine half of the time, and did its job well enough to give me some semblance of light and warmth during the night. I never heard any animal sounds. No wolves or coyotes howling in the night. No birds. Not even a shuffling in the brush as some critter ran by. During the day, nothing moved, apart from the evidence of wind swaying the trees and the grass. There didn't seem to be any weather apart from the wind and the strange haze, although I didn't know if that was meteorological or something stranger. I'd been here, wherever here is, for weeks, and it never rained. There was never a cloud in the sky. The crushing loneliness of this place kept leaving me feeling cold despite the campfires and sunlight. But I had to press onward. I somehow stumbled into this place, and I had to find a way out. For many more days, I wandered. I would instinctively follow roads, paved in dirt, even though I knew they would only abruptly end at some point. This place felt like a bad, procedurally generated game. The layouts of environments were completely random, the transitions from one place to the next, abrupt and unnatural, and any man-made structure was either broken or out of place. It was obviously not the world I knew. A wheat field came into view as I stepped over a hill. Fields meant farmhouses, which meant sturdy shelter and more food. Staying in one of those houses permanently sounded like a good idea on paper, but the resources inside eventually run out, and I had no idea how to turn the surrounding wheat into any type of palatable food. Pushing through the dried, golden stalks, I couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't want me there, like I was being watched by something, and it wasn't happy to see me. After looking around and failing to spot anything, I pressed on toward a house that I'd spotted. Nothing significant, just a simple, slightly run-down 2-story building with a peeling roof. In the world I knew, a dirt farmyard would have surrounded it, not the dead crops. The inside looked no better than the outside. Old paint peeled from the walls, a layer of dust covered the furniture and floor, and the building had that oddly nice old wood smell to it. I found my way to the kitchen, to where the food had been stocked. Stale bread, dry fruits, and vegetables mostly, but the canned goods would be fresh. Thank God these places had can openers in the drawers. Dull as they may be, they did their jobs eventually. I pulled up one can, whose label had fallen off, and brought a can opener to its top. Cold soup, better than nothing. Lacking the patience and desire to show my manners to the empty air, I slurped it down like a soda. Sure, I'd prefer it hot, but I'm hungry and not interested in risking a chance with the gas stove in this house or taking the time to make a fire. Then that feeling hit me again. The sensation of being unwanted, of being watched. I rushed to a window and looked outside. The daytime sun still shined overhead, so there was hardly a shadow for anything to hide in. The view through the window presented the barn, an old truck that belonged in a scrapyard, a mangled-up bare tree, and a creepy old scarecrow. Other than those few things, not at all out of place in the current setting, there was nothing else worth mentioning, unless you chose to focus on the half-mile of old wheat plants surrounding the place. Once I stocked up on canned food, I left the house and continued on my way, doing my best to ignore the haunting sensation. Even so, I kept looking around for any signs of anything that might be following me. Nothing moved, nothing made noise, nothing even had any sort of eyes that I could identify. The wheat wasn't a bother to walk through. It parted easily and stayed down as I walked over some of it, leaving a trail marking where I came from so I could find that house again if I had to. Several meters ahead, another bare, mangled tree rose out of the wheat. The dark gray bark looked like it had been starved of moisture for years. The tree itself was insignificant. There were plenty of those in the fields I'd walked through before. I walked past it, and that feeling overtook me again, this time more urgent. I whipped around to look back. All that was there were the two trees I'd just passed. Wait! My eyes couldn't decide which tree to focus on. Both were identical and standing right next to each other. I knew for a fact that one of them wasn't there before. I surely would have seen them both. Why did a new tree suddenly materialize? I know I said before that this place was like a bad game render. Was this some kind of glitch? I closed my eyes for a moment, and the extra tree was gone. In a panic, I turned and ran. I didn't know what the hell was going on, and it made me feel even less safe than normal. A rundown tractor and another scarecrow came into view. Not next to each other, but close enough to see at the same time. I blinked, and a second tractor appeared next to the original. It wasn't a perfect match, looking more like it was made of the bark of the dead tree than metal. I didn't take my eyes off the tractors as I slowly backed away. The dark one slowly faded to look more like a real tractor, as if trying to mimic the other. I kept moving backward, keeping my gaze on the tractors. I blinked. The extra tractor vanished, and now there was a second scarecrow that looked like it was made from the tractor's materials, and slowly fading to match the one it stood next to. Something was stalking me, and it was trying to hide by mimicking anything that wasn't wheat. It wasn't doing a good job, but it did manage to scare the shit out of me. Without thinking, I turned and ran back the way I came. The sounds of crackling wood and creaking metal pursued me. Whatever stalked me clearly realized I was aware of it and gave up on hiding. I kept running as fast as I could go, but I could still hear it getting closer. Closer! Closer! The house should have come into view already. Where was it? Where was it? I soon reached an area where the wheat was matted down in a sharp curve. I somehow recognized it as the spot where the house was, but it wasn't there anymore. The old tractor that sat next to the house was still there, but the house itself, the barn, and the scarecrow were gone. Closer. Closer. The noise stopped right behind me. I'd already witnessed how fast this thing is. There's no point in running. I closed my eyes, and after a sudden jolt and a wooden and metallic noise, never opened them again.